Hey guys, welcome to back to our channel, and this is your friend again Wasim. So we are going to see the next concept that we discussed in our previous video, hooks. Let's start with one of the first hook that we are ever going to use. That is one common hook, useState. If you remember, if you have not seen our previous video, please go ahead and see our previous video how we categorized these hooks. And we call useState as a common hook because we are going to use it on a daily basis to create all our variables. And why do we have to use useState? Let's go ahead and see immediately without wasting any time. So let me jump back to our code, okay? And as you always know that we usually create a new component for each thing. So let's say state mgmt.js. So we are doing just a simple state management using useState. So const state mgmt equal to empty return h1 hello world, save, export default. Yep, and we usually import this somewhere here. State management. We might have remembered this. We have done this 1,000 times and we know what's going on. So how do we create a component? Voila, let's see. Yes, hello world, and we have our component loaded into our application. So let's see. Let's forget about useState and what is useState, but let's start with a simple variable. Let me create let name equal to KnowledgeKeen, okay, and instead of hello world I'm going to say hello name. Do you think this will work? I said yes, because we have just created a simple variable called as KnowledgeKeen. We are just going to print this, and yes, this works. Hello KnowledgeKeen. You use let, you use const, it won't make any difference. So let's start using let, and now let's create a button. The actual issue starts here. When we create a button or create any kind of an event, on click, come on click, let's say that handle click or change name, something like this, and change name. Here we just add this function constant change name. We are not doing anything different. Name equal to, let's say, John Doe, or I'll write my name, Wasim. Refresh. F12. Let's see our console. If we have some kind of error, we just click. Nothing happened, right? Let me click on more. I'm clicking it 100 times, but my variable doesn't change. But why? Did we do something wrong? No, absolutely not. Let's see exactly what is happening. Console.log before change. Come on. What was the value of name? Let me just shrink it a bit. Copy, and after change. So what will happen before I change the name, and what will happen after I change the name? Does the name really change? Just let me do a quick refresh and I do a click. Before the name changed, it was KnowledgeKeen, but after the name change, it was Wasim. See, the name really changed, but why it is not reflecting? So here comes the interesting part, that this is happening because you are creating one simple JavaScript variable. Does React come into picture? No. Where is this whole concept that we call as virtual DOM came into picture? No. This whole virtual DOM, we totally ignored it, and we are directly creating some local JavaScript variables, and we are trying to add some values in it, right? So then what is the issue over here? To make it more simple, React says if you're creating a JavaScript variable, it's your responsibility how you're going to use it. But if you want me, or basically React, to update the DOM, you have to go through a process. You have to tell the virtual DOM to change that particular output, and I'll definitely go and tell the DOM to change that particular value on the DOM. And that's why we have virtual DOM, right? That virtual DOM takes care of all this rendering and putting in the new values, updating the new values, keeping a watch on the variables, and all of this stuff. It's not our job to handle that. It's React's virtual DOM's responsibility to take care of it. So what we need to do is, we cannot declare variables like this. We could, but just for doing some local manipulations. But if you want to really update the DOM, or if you want to print out something, then you can't do this. And for that, React added useState. Okay, so useState is a hook. If you have seen our previous video, it's something like this: useState and round brackets. So it's a function. So how do we use that? We need to import it from import curly braces useState from React. So we are just taking useState from where? From our React library. Now we added curly braces because from one library we can export default only once. And if you remember, we used to import React as our capital React object from React. But now we are also trying to import some other thing from the same library, and this is not exported as default. If you see, we are exporting default here, right? So if we export one single thing as a default value, then you can directly use it. But all the other things that you want to export from one single file, it should not be exported as default. Remember this. Similarly to a function, it has only one return. So similarly to a file, it only has one export default. All the other ones are simply export, no default. So that's how, see, useState is export. It has been exported from our React library. Import React, or if don't import React, it doesn't really matter. So now, yeah, I know my code is breaking. How do we declare this? Constant array name comma set name equal to useState and my default value KnowledgeKeen. So what did we write here? Const array name set name useState and KnowledgeKeen. Let's see actually what all these things are. Why const? Okay, let's come to that a bit later. But first, we have destructured our array. The first value that you see here, let me just make a comment here. The first value is basically nothing but a getter, and the second value is nothing but a setter. Getter and setter. Okay, to get the value you use getter, to set the value you use setter as a function. So this is the simple thing that React gives you: one getter, one setter for each individual variable. useState, that we usually know that it's our hook, and here it's our default value, and this can be basically empty, null. If you don't declare any value, if you don't give this value, it will be undefined. So the name will be undefined. You don't have anything into that. So simply you can do that, and you can pass any kind or any type of default value to your variable. Similarly to a let or var, we usually let's say that we say number equal to 10, but later number equal to be Wasim. We can do that. But here also the same way we also can do that. You assign one default value, but you can later change it to any kind of different data type. That will not break. That's just a good to know knowledge. But right now what we are doing, we are having a getter name, we are having a setter set name, useState, and some default value. And as I said, for setter, if you want to change the value of this variable name, you have to use its setter. So now what setter do we have? Okay, so that is your set name. And how do we use it? Simply, how do we do that? Set name, and in the brackets you just pass the updated value. Rest of your code remains same. To use the getter, just use directly the name of the variable, and to use the setter, you have to use it as a function and pass your new value as a parameter, and that will change. Oops. To see this, let me just do a quick refresh, and if I click this, see, your name has changed. Let me just remove these consoles for now, okay, to avoid any kind of confusion. Okay, here I have KnowledgeKeen. If I click it, it changes my value of my variable. Interesting, right? This is how you use any kind of variable. If you have like 10 variables, you have to use, for now, you have to use 10 different use states. For now, I'm saying we have a hack for it, but we'll see that in our future videos. But for now, let's say that if I'm having a variable as name, I can directly use a getter. If I want to update that name, I have to use a setter. Simple as it should be. Okay, and that's why people love React so much, that it's simple. You don't have to do all kind of things just to remember this. You just have to use its hook and your work will be done. So coming back, there is one more thing that definitely you have to remember in your hooks. Okay, sorry, in your useState hook. That useState hook is an asynchronous operation. What is an asynchronous? To give you a better understanding, what will happen, let's take an example. What will happen here? Let number equal to 10, number equal to some different value. What will happen over here? Is it an asynchronous operation or a synchronous operation? Synchronous means it is done immediately without changing it. The code will not go ahead. We have our interpreter, right? Line by line execution. Absolutely right. Line by line execution. So until and unless my value is changed, my code will not go ahead. But what is an async operation? Async operation is that it is going to take some XYZ time, and until and unless that time is finished, you'll not get an updated value. So here, this useState basically takes some XYZ time to update the value of the variable. You'll not be able to see it with the naked eyes. You'll not be able to see that absolute millisecond change. Okay, but definitely it is going to take some or the other time to update. If you want to see how exactly this is working, let me just see console.log. Again, the same thing. We say before name. What was the value of this name before, and what's the value of this name after, right? So before we change it from set name, okay, before we change the value of this variable, what was the actual value, and after we use the setter, what is the actual value? Refresh. If I click here, you see before changing it, it was KnowledgeKeen, but after changing it, it is still KnowledgeKeen, because even though the DOM is updated after some fraction of seconds, but still it took some time to update. Okay, and that's what it is important, that if you have one function when you are just using setters, and if you are trying to access the latest value, you can never do that. Okay, because it is going to take some time. There is a hack for it, which we are going to see in useEffect. Okay, so useEffect will help us out to fetch the updated value. But for now, in this video, in useState video, you cannot get the updated value right away. Okay, async operation, it's going to take time. I hope you got how this whole useState works. Okay, and this is important. To declare the values, there are two things which you should remember. First, how exactly you are declaring the values, and second, it is an async operation. Basically, when I take interviews, I usually ask this question, that if I'm giving you this, if I'm adding an event, what will be the exact value on line number 10? Here on line number 10, what will be the exact value? And most people fail to understand why exactly it is not changing, because they forget how useState hook is defined. It is defined as asynchronous operation. I hope you like this video. I hope I was able to clarify your understanding. Okay, I have tried to go in as basic as possible. I'm not giving you an in-depth definition or in-depth how useState is working, but for understanding, this is how I understood. Okay, and this is how I'm still working till date without any confusion. And I hope I was able to give you exactly what was needed for this understanding of useState. If you understood this, please give us a thumbs up. And if you have any question, any kind of question, I would really love to see your comments. Please put in your questions into comments. I'll definitely answer all of your questions. So please keep supporting, and thank you for watching.